I'm delirious. True horror, horrible, terrible. Part of this is real. Like, these are things that actually happened. This book absolutely might be one of the best haunted house stories. Every new reveal about the human monster makes me want to kill the human monster. I don't really want to sit in the dark. Are you guys ready to be spooked? Because I'm ready to be spooked. I have spent the last few months reading a lot of fantasy, a lot of good fantasy, and that's been so much fun, but I have been needing to be spooked. And then I saw everyone doing Summerween stuff all over YouTube, and I was way too late to like join in. So I decided to do my own mini Summerween for myself. We are gonna be doing a 24-hour readathon to see how many haunted house stories I can fit in to 24 hours. So let's go through what I'm planning on reading. I've already started Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I started this as an audiobook while I was getting ready this morning. It may have been a mistake to start with what is probably going to be the best book. I already really like the writing style. Eleanor is so dreamy. She's so like, I don't know, what is this? Like glittery in her head? I don't know what I'm trying to do here. The next one that, look, I am so stupidly excited for this book. And it sounds absolutely ridiculous. If you watched my recent Tarot TBR, you'll know that I started listening to a podcast that interviews horror writers. And so I found a lot of really like interesting sounding books from that podcast. It's great. Also, you should go listen to it. It's very good if you like horror stuff. This is one of them, and I was so immediately intrigued by this concept that I had to try it out. This is The Residence by Andrew Piper. And can you guess what it's about? It's a haunted house story set in the White House. So it's a historical fiction based off of real life documents and journals by one of the president's wives, Pierce. Pierce's first lady, what is her freaking name? Jane Pierce. Okay, so First Lady Jane Pierce back in 1853 was the first one to kind of document some strange goings on in the White House. And like, would I be surprised if the White House was haunted? Definitely not. And then the fourth one is It Will Just Be Us by Joe Kaplan. This is also from that podcast and was basically just lauded as the best haunted house story the host has read in like years, and involves a faceless boy, some weird sisters, and twisty ghost stuff. I think it should be a fun time. I know for sure this one's probably gonna freak me out. So I wanna read this one. It's dark out. We're really going on an adventure of how scared can I get. I've also got Near the Bone by Christina Henry, I think it is. That is not really a haunted house story. That's like a monster story. If I like need a break from the houses, I think I might go and read that guy. That one's been like all over BookTube, I think, and it looks like it's really fun and really good. That's where we're at. That's what we're doing today. Why don't y'all grab yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee? It is currently 12:33, hour zero. We're gonna get into it. Let's read some haunted house stories.
Blackstone Audio presents The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. No live organism can continue for long to exist sanely under conditions of absolute reality.
Something is knocking on the doors in Hill House. I am a solid 94 pages into this book, and there's something about Gothics and like that oppressive atmosphere that really fucking gets to me. And it's like bright ass day out here. I can like feel my heart through my chest. Okay, that's all I wanted to share, is that I'm spooked. Okay, let's talk about this for a second. I don't know if anyone else has gotten this with this book, but it's very clearly about repressed sexuality to me. Eleanor is clearly repressing her attraction towards women. I mean, Theo is obviously gay. Female companion. We all know how historians talk about, oh, these two women were just roommates their whole goddamn lives. Yeah, no, that's not real. So Theo is clearly gay, and Eleanor is clearly attracted to her almost immediately. And I think Theo figures it out within the first couple of hours, because the difference in Theo's like physical touch with Eleanor goes away after she figures out that Eleanor is attracted to her. We know that Shirley Jackson was incredibly unhappy in her marriage, in her life, and she writes books about really unhappy main characters as a way to kind of express that and maybe talk her way through it. I think she's clearly Eleanor in this situation. I think it's really interesting that whether or not it was intended, Eleanor is clearly dealing with an attraction towards women that she doesn't understand. She says at one point during the book that the only thing that ever comes out of her mouth are lies and no one can tell. That leads me to believe that this is about a woman who's never been able to belong anywhere because she has to lie all the time. All of these things kind of stack upon each other to make this very dreamy, cerebral is the word I would use, this very cerebral woman. It's a mindset that is very ripe for manipulation, and I think that's kind of what Shirley Jackson is talking about here, is how easy that can be manipulated in people who are already lost and don't feel like they belong. The beeping is so annoying! I don't like this as much as I expected it to. I expected this to be a 5-star read, and it's not. But I feel like I got a lot more out of it. I feel like it's something I would read over and over again and get something new out of it every time. It was definitely spooky. That atmosphere for the first, 100 pages was pristine, absolutely amazing. I think that tapered off for me. The introduction of the doctor's wife, I did not like that. She's so incredibly abrasive, and it kind of hit a tone change in the story for me, but it made it kind of refreshing after 120 pages of this very consistent, intense, dark atmosphere. I think it was too much of a tone change for me. I would have preferred something else coming in that third act. I really, really didn't like her. I didn't really see her point in the story, although I guarantee if I read this again, I would probably see her point in the story. I feel really weird about this book. This was a very strange experience. It feels like something I'd read for English class and have a really good time pulling stuff out of. All in all good, I'm giving it 3.75 stars. I don't know why that feels right to me. I liked it, and it was different than I expected in a good way. I don't know what book I want to read next. I'm gonna take a break, have some lunch. It is 4 o'clock. I will see you all soon. I have decided The Residence feels like the next natural course of action, so that is what we're gonna start next. Ghost story in the White House. Sounds chaotic as fuck. Loves, it is 6:30. I am about 187 pages into The Residence. We are past part 1 into part 2. Let me give you a better rundown of what this is actually about. This is about Jane and Franklin Pierce during the time of his presidency, and right before their presidency, their kid dies. Franklin goes on to do presidency stuff, and Jane is stuck in her grief, and she has this ghostly entity that has been following her around since she was a kid. She has this weird fascination with death and with what is beyond death, and obviously that comes into play with the death of her son. I think this book is a lot scarier if you have kids. Frankly, it's very easily digestible, although it is set in the 1850s, and it really doesn't feel like it's set in the 1850s. I've read a decent amount of historical fiction in my lifetime, and this does not feel like a historical piece. That is kind of taking me out of the fact that part of this is real. These are things that actually happened. These are real occurrences. There is a weird ghostly presence in the White House that a lot of visiting dignitaries have dealt with. After reading something that's so atmospheric, like Haunting of Hill House, this is falling so flat in the atmosphere. That's like what spooks me, is a good oppressive atmosphere, and this doesn't really have that. It's more of the conceptualization of horror. So that's a bit of a letdown, but it's still enjoyable. Like, I'm still gonna finish it, but as it stands right now at about just over halfway, I'm feeling it's about a 3-star. And that could be, it's just not really my thing, I think. I have good vibes for where this is going. Also, the entity is absolutely a reference to Lasher in The Witching Hour by Anne Rice. If Andrew Piper did not base this thing off of Lasher, I will be thoroughly shocked. That's really all I have to say right now, is it's like good, kind of what I expected, not as scary as I expected, but that's okay. We're gonna have some dinner and I will come back to you guys when I have finished this. You should see the camera lighting setup we've got going on over here. All right, The Residence. This was super generic. You could tell me this was set 10 years ago and I would believe you. There is absolutely no sense of world or atmosphere in this at all, which is a whole fucking bummer. And as that's like the first thing I look for in horrors, it like really didn't hit the mark for me. On top of that, it's clearly meant to be political commentary, which is fine. Nothing wrong with political commentary, and I agree with this political commentary. I think it's really pointed. I think it's well done. It was released in 2020. It was released at a really pertinent time. It feels timely in that sense. And I don't think there's like anything wrong with this book really, but it just, none of it feels particularly original. I didn't really care about the characters. The last like 10 pages are just about the actual history of Jane and Franklin Pierce, and then the Lincolns and Mary Lincoln and the death of their kid and like all of that. That was the most interesting part of this book. Was like the real life thing, and I wish that there had been more of that throughout this, because for such a historical piece that I think had a lot of effort put into it and a lot of research put into it, there wasn't enough actually in the story to make me feel like these were real people. Talking to my lovely partner, they knew that these people were real, and I grew up in Canada, so I'm like less familiar with them, and they were like, oh yeah, I remember that character, that's history. And I was like, oh yeah, they're real people. Like, it didn't feel grounded in anything other than a sense of morality, which again, there's nothing wrong with, but like, I just didn't vibe with it. There was one scene that was absolutely grotesque, like true horror, horrible, terrible, and that was the only part of it that was scary. The context of it is scary. I do think it would be scarier if I like had kids. I don't know. Go read Pet Sematary if you want to read about that, I guess. Like, this is a very poor copy of it, in my opinion. Essie, could you stop scratching the couch? I'm also kind of glad I read it in the span of like I just binge read it, so I didn't feel like I had to draw this experience out very long. That's like a bad sign for a book, I think. All in all, 2.5 stars. It was fine. We're gonna give Talking Scared another shot with the next book, which is It Will Just Be Us by Joe Kaplan. I have much higher hopes for this, as this is a Gothic piece, thus it is going to be all atmosphere. I hope. So I made a cup of tea, and in the span of that time I read like 5 pages, and it's already written about a bajillion times better than the last one. Okay, that's all I wanted to share. I just finished part 1 of, can't see it in that direction, and I feel like if I didn't stop now I wouldn't be able to stop until I'm finished. This book is very good and very spooky. And it's taking a lot of really fun tropes, like good solid haunted house tropes, and turning them upside down. It's like the exact opposite of what the last book was. Like, it's so unique. The atmosphere is like, it's not super oppressive like Haunting of Hill House. It's more like ominous than oppressive. You know bad things are coming and you do not know what they are gonna be or how anyone's gonna fix them. but they're coming. I'm very much enjoying this. It is currently 10:30. I had some tea to try to wake myself up, and it did nothing. It was smart saving this for like the darkness of nighttime, because it's certainly spooky.
3 hours later.
So, this book absolutely might be one of the best haunted house stories ever. I do mean ever. I'm not being dramatic, even though it's after 1 a.m. This was so perfectly horrible. I'm never gonna get the final image out of my head. It was such a perfect blend of the horror of the supernatural and the horror of humanity in a way that I think most horror writers wish they could do as successfully as Don't Eat My Knitting Needles. I've been thoroughly spooked. That was absolutely a win. 5 stars. Top tier. Possibly my new favorite horror, which is saying something because I'm obsessed with Mexican Gothic. And I probably would have been able to sleep like okay, like pretty well, like just fine. Like, yeah, the faceless boy is like a little creepy, but I probably would have gotten past it. But I gotta say, the epilogue of this goddamn book, there is an image that is just never gonna get out of my head. I don't know if it's because it's a personal fear or if it was just that horrible. I might just be that horrible. I don't know. Someone else read this and tell me how you feel. Nah. This book is really good. And I don't know what to do with myself. I don't really want to sit in the dark. Now I wonder, oh my gosh, my cat is so cute! Oh, I missed it.
Essie, look at the camera. No.
Anyway, I'm delirious. Wish me luck going to bed. We will reconvene in the morning, friends. This feels silly to have like one more book after this. Like, nothing's gonna beat this book. Why would I bother? It's so good. Okay, all right. Goodbye. Good night. Jesus Christ. Good morning, everybody. It is about 9:30. I slept in. I feel like garbage. 1:30 is way past my bedtime. If it wasn't for my lovely partner telling me that I'm not allowed to chicken out at 11:30, I would not have finished. It will just be us last night. I have definitely haunted housed myself out. You know what I'm trying to say. So we are going to finish off this vlog with Near the Bone by Christina Henry. My Kindle says it's gonna take me 5 hours to read. I thought this was like relatively short. Let's see if we can get it done by 12:30. I will check back in with you when I'm a little more into this and I've had some coffee. I haven't done any updates on this because this story is just like moving so quickly. I'm about 65% of the way through, about 200 pages. It's solid. I love that we're more scared of the human monster than the monster. Every new reveal about the human monster makes me want to kill the human monster. That's the only update. It's going so quickly. It's written really well. I would not say that this is a fun read, but it is really good. I will check back in when we're done. Okay, so I finished the last one and it is exactly 12:30. I don't know how I managed to plan this well. Also, it was great. Totally different from the other books that I was reading. This was more of a slasher monster kind of horror than an atmospheric horror. And it was absolutely like exactly what I needed after 3 haunted house stories. 4 stars, 4.5 stars. Super well written. The characters were great. The stakes were high. I cared so much about them. I think this is how people read thrillers most of the time. And I just never connect with the way that a thriller is structured in the same way as I do with a horror structure. Don't ask me why, I don't know. But this has to be the feeling because it was like a breakneck must read till the end, must find out what happened. Did I explain what this book is about? Near the Bone is about a woman who lives in a cabin in the middle of the woods by herself with her husband, with her abusive husband. There is like a creature monster in the woods hunting. That's like all I really want to give you without releasing any of the spoilers, because I absolutely think the less you know going into this, the better. Definitely check the content warnings. It's a pretty heavy read, but I genuinely really enjoyed it. There's a reason that this is all over BookTube right now. This was a really fun read. If you're looking for well, again, I think I mentioned it's not fun, but it is good and it's like satisfying to get to the end, and all of it feels very earned. Like the ending feels very earned, which I think is really important. I hope you try out It Will Just Be Us or Near the Bone. Let me know if you do or if you have read them already. I'd be so curious to hear what everyone else has thought about these books. If you haven't checked out my tarot TBR for August yet, I'll put a link right up here so you can go and watch that guy. If you watched all the way to the end, thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this content, and I will see you all very soon.